and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman and members of the audience this evening, if you could all please remain standing for a moment of silence for Alice Henchy, Principal, and School Committee Member and Superintendent, Mr. Paul Andrews, for a moment of silence for those individuals dedicated to our school district over the years. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mulrennan. Okay, the superintendent will call the roll.
Ms. Chisholm.
Here.
Ms. Cormier.
Present.
Ms. Crowley.
Present.
Mr. Lipset.
Here.
Mr. Kissel.
Here.
Mr. Mulrennan.
Present.
Dr. Wells.
Here. Okay, next up, we got the approval of minutes. So we have the 12/14/21 minutes.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments? We have a motion, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so we have public comment. Do we have anybody that wants to speak today? Okay. If it's not, we're going to have a discussion about the trip, field trip. I don't know if that's what you want to talk about, or do you have something else? So if you want to come on up, if you want to talk before the committee, just come on up here, take a seat, and just tell us what you want to talk about. Yep. If you would like, if you want to leave your name with the secretary on the way out, and that way we can get back to you if you ask some particular question.
Great. My name's Rachel Kubery. I'm in the Rhode Island District. So I want to thank the superintendent for the clear communication that we've gotten over the past couple of weeks regarding the changes in COVID procedures, as well as updates to the district website, which eliminated outdated information. I do, however, have continued concerns. Our families following CDC guidance with 2 vaccinated and boosted adults, 1 fully vaccinated elementary student. We do, however, have an unvaccinated 4-year-old at home. In his age range, in fact, in all children's age ranges, COVID cases have more than tripled compared to the previous Delta peak this fall. Additionally, hospitalizations for unvaccinated children, including those too young to be vaccinated like my son, continue to increase. Furthermore, DESC released data this week that showed 50,000 COVID-19 infections in students and staff in the past 2 weeks, which is nearly the equivalent to the number of positive cases in our schools in all of September, October, November, and December. So I look forward to the upcoming COVID update, and I hope that it will be a regular standing agenda item as COVID continues to affect our schools month after month. Today, I hope to hear more about why we've elected to follow some CDC guidance and DESC guidance, but not all. I want to learn more about why we're not following recommendations for continued contact tracing and pooled testing. The CDC recommendations from last week specifically called for offering screening testing or pooled testing to all unvaccinated students in moderate to high transmission areas, of which Woburn is and has been for some time. DESC has supported this all year. Given that we're not implementing that guidance, I'm interested to hear more about why we're holding firm to a 5-day quarantine. I want to hear more about how we are going to ensure that the children returning from a shortened leave are wearing masks at all times, including lunchtime when not explicitly eating, as DESC outlined in their latest FAQ. Another town in the Middlesex League opted to return to the 10-day quarantine, citing a few reasons, including exposure during food consumption and greater potential for mask slippage. I'm also curious to hear more about how families are going to be informed about positive cases. If the building-based letters are ending, then strictly relying on the DESC dashboard is not enough for parents to understand the current risk in the school community. The dashboard is difficult to navigate and only provides one district number. It will be impossible to see any school-based trends. It would be helpful for the greater Woburn community for Woburn Public Schools to implement a district dashboard as other surrounding communities, including Stoneham, Medford, Winchester, Cambridge, Waltham, and Lexington, have had in place all school year. Finally, I understand that many of these procedures take time and people to implement. If we need more people, we should hire more people to support our nursing staff. I encourage you also to use the community resources, including parent volunteers, in any way that you can. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments? Oh, and I should remind people, it's my first time doing this year, we are being recorded, so by coming forward and speaking, you're agreeing to be recorded. Thank you.
Great.
Hello, thank you for having me here today. I'm Allison Van Deventer, and I'm the mother of a vaccinated first grader at the Malcolm White and an unvaccinated 3-year-old. So first of all, I want to thank you for putting the HEPA air purifiers in the classrooms at the beginning of the school year. Because we did that, we were much better prepared when Omicron hit. There are 3 things I want to say today. First, I'd like to express my deepest appreciation for our school nurses, and especially for our school nurse Kathy. They already had a full-time job before the pandemic, managing ordinary student health, and now with this COVID testing and paperwork and communication, they've essentially had to take on another full-time job. They're working at 200% capacity, and without them, everything would fall apart. So could you check in with them and see whether there's anything they need that it's possible to provide? I know nursing subs and aides are extremely hard to find right now, but is there any way to get them some more administrative help? Second, I just want to remind everyone that COVID is an air. It's small, but it seems to be good. That finds that with Omicron, the infectious period peaks at 3 to 6 days after the symptoms start. So with a 5-day isolation period, here's the study, by the way, we may be bringing students back to school exactly when they're most likely to spread COVID to their classmates. The CD says that COVID-positive people who leave isolation after 5 days have to mask consistently when around others until day 10. Kids in school can't consistently mask around others. They take off their masks to eat lunch, to drink water, to eat snacks, and when they're outside. This means a lot of opportunity for this extremely transmissible virus to spread, so keep in mind that it's somewhere between 2 and 4 times more transmissible than Delta. In Woburn schools, we have the added complication that in the elementary schools in particular, that most elementary students are unvaccinated, and you can't require a negative rapid test to return because it would be inequitable. Several school districts in our area, including Medford and Arlington, are keeping the 10-day isolation period for students as a safety measure based on what they've observed in their contact tracing, and because students, unlike staff, need to eat in close proximity to others. I know a long quarantine is a burden for families, but shouldn't we consider the possibility that COVID-positive students will return and infect others, including immunocompromised students and students from vulnerable families? Wouldn't that increase the total burden on our community, including on our overstrained medical system? And in light of this, and especially in light of this Japan study, would you consider going to a 7-day isolation period? Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you. All right, so right now we have our student representative, Faith. Thank you for coming virtually, and give us your update.
Yes, thank you for having me. So to start with the updates happening at the high school, the performing arts students had a wonderful Winterfest concert back on December 13th. All the performance sounded amazing, and it was nice to have around the holidays. Athletic teams and clubs are in full swing for the winter months. Students returned from winter break and are fighting through the challenge of COVID. Students are doing a great job being safe, wearing masks, and following the school rules to allow a mostly normal school day/year, and all the activities are able to still take place. The senior class is looking forward to a senior internship and passion project opportunities. The Woburn Chamber of Commerce has came through in a big way to support the internship program. Over 30 local businesses have expressed interest in support of the internship program. The WMHS administration is working with the senior class and these local businesses to make meaningful connections and career exploration opportunities a reality for the spring. In terms of upcoming events, the 17th is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. There's no school. Spanning from January 18th through the 21st, mid-year exams and access testing for ELs and opt-outs will take place. The week following, the cafe will be used for retakes for the students who were absent the week of the mid-years. And on January 21st, term 2 ends, as well as semester 1. Work and makeup exams will be taking place this week as well. And on February 4th, report cards will be published. This will be pushed back a week to account for the makeup exam week. On the 2nd, there will be an early release for students. Spanning from February 4th through the 6th, there will be a Monument Field Trip, which is a conference for WMHS's Model United Nations Club, hosted by Boston University. It's an opportunity for students to represent and engage as nations to tackle some of the world's most pressing issues. On February 13th, the Woburn Dollars for Scholars will be hosting their mail-a-thon for seniors applying for this Dollars for Scholars program. And that leads into the week of the 19th to the 27th, being February vacation. On February 28th, the MIAA State Winter Tournament will start. And on going into March 4th, Term 3 progress reports will be published. And that concludes my report.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Do
Faith.
any committee members have any questions or comments? Mr. Mulrennan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Faith. How are you tonight?
Good, how are you?
Great. I just want to remind the audience, if you missed it over the holiday break, there was a beautiful write-up, very impressive write-up about Miss Faith and Woburn High School students. So I just want to comment that it was impressive to read about you again. We hear about you all the time, but it was in print over the holiday break. So if anybody happen to get a copy of that Times, you'd be happy to autograph it, I assume?
Oh, I'm not, possibly, yeah.
Okay.
I'm glad you saw it.
No. And congratulate your classmate that's writing those articles. They're very informative, and we're learning a lot about the students from reading them, so thank you.
Absolutely.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay, so you're always welcome to stay, but I think you especially want to stay, and I think I'm going to ask the committee to do a motion to move things around here, because we have a couple of things that I think you're interested in. First, we'll do the field trips, and then we'll do the graduation thing. So if we could have a motion to suspend the regular order of business?
Second.
Second, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So why don't we do the field trip? So we have two items on the field trip. The first one is discussion about an Icelandic trip, and why don't we do that one first? So thank you for coming. We want to do this in an expedited manner because, we found out about it very recently, and we just want to hear what's happening and then make some type of action that's appropriate. Thank you.
Okay. I don't actually have anything planned. I just wanted to get you all caught up on what was happening.
Okay.
In 2019, I started planning this trip, well aware of the school board's policy on field trips. And I was planning to do this outside of school. I ran one in 2019 before, and I started it when it was okay, and then it wasn't. We kept it going outside of school, and that worked with all of the parents' agreement. So I started a new one, and I didn't know, I was planning it for 2 years in advance, and I had to give approximate dates with the intention of changing them when the calendar came out. Mm-hmm. Then the pandemic hit, and with all of the distractions and upheaval of the pandemic, the detail went past me, and I forgot. And it was a simple mistake, and only about maybe a month ago, I realized what I'd done. I realized that I had booked for the wrong dates, and at that point it was too late to change it. I told Principal Callanan, and I was quite freaked out because I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I really don't. I do want to keep this completely out of school. I approached the parents about changing the dates, and it was unanimous. None of them wanted to change it. They all agree that it's okay for them to take their own kids out of school, like kids do all the time. I've got a student going to Disney for a week during school. Kids go to Brazil, India for a month at a time, and they all agreed. So if you don't mind, I've got a few parents here who would like to speak. These are parents of kids who are traveling. One of the parents, Karen Manna, her daughter Ty, who is here, went with us. Ty went with us last time to Iceland. Mm-hmm. So if my parents wouldn't mind coming up, we have Karen Manna, Karen Dion, and is Anna Santos here? And I would actually, Ty, why don't you come up too? You might be able to say a couple things about the trip.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I'm Karen Vanna. I'm parent of my senior Ty, and she was lucky enough to go on this trip when she was a freshman. So when we heard about it was last March of 2021, when we agreed to, Ty wanted to go, and I said, sure. Her dad and I said it was a great experience, and to go again, to have the opportunity to see the Northern Lights, which is unbelievable experience. We agreed. We were unaware at the time, too, that that was not school vacation week, but Ty being a senior, college apps are in, some of the acceptances are here, so we figured it was fine, not a problem. So as a parent, I'm hoping that they can still go. I know that COVID is an issue, but we have no idea how COVID is going to be in March. If the trip is postponed to June, which none of the parents wanted to do that, especially parents of the seniors, because so many of them have work commitments, travel commitments, so on and so forth. We wanted to keep it for the same week in February that is already scheduled. So we're willing to take that chance. They've been vaccinated, they've been boosted, trying to stay safe. So I'm hoping that they get to go with the blessing of this committee. So it's an unbelievable experience for them to have.
Anybody else want to add anything? All right.
Sure. I was grateful enough to go freshman year. And one of the reasons why I wanted to go back was to see the Northern Lights, because it was different from the trip freshman year, and I think that it's definitely it can be an educational experience, though it was not intended to be. It's not a school trip. I definitely think if necessary, it could be turned into that. I could definitely write up a review about all of the different educational purposes I've seen there. But I feel like I was one of the only few in the senior class 2022 to experience this freshman year. I do believe that my fellow classmates and underclassmen should be able to experience this. And with so many commitments that a lot of the seniors and my fellow classmates do have after graduation or push further back, I don't believe that they would be able to experience the joys of Iceland that I did get to experience freshman year. And it's definitely some place that I hold dear to my heart, and am very excited to go back with the blessing.
I wish I could go.
Did anybody else in the group wanted to speak, or I can ask the committee if they had any questions?
Can I just say
Yep.
something? I just want to make a so my son Michael, he's a senior, and we had talked about possibly moving the dates a little further out, just when the surge maybe isn't so strong, and I'm all for moving the dates. Our issue was that if they move it to the end of June, my son enlisted into the military, and he is going to be shipping out at the very beginning of July to go to basic training. So if we move it to the end of June and there's any sort of possibility that he got stuck over in Iceland and had to quarantine or whatever, he could possibly miss his ship out date, and that's just a risk that my family, we can't take that risk. So if it got moved to the end of June, we would have to cancel and lose the money. So that's all. I just wanted to
Okay. Thank you for everybody. But I'll open up the committee if any of the committee members wanted to ask Abby questions or not. Mr. Chisholm?
I just wanted was the school email used by you to anybody about this trip?
Yes, it was.
It was. Okay, so that could be a problem because I'm committed to something. So, and was insurance given on this trip by all the parents?
Yes.
And just it makes me a little nervous with the quarantining going around, and God forbid you got there and 2 kids tested positive. Who stays? Who stays with them?
Right.
Where do they stay? Who picks up the cost for that?
That's all covered. We're using EF Tours, which is one of the most reliable tour companies. There are 2 chaperones going with 10 kids, and if somebody tests positive there, then 1 chaperone stays with the kid, and EF covers all of those expenses. they cover the hotel, they feed us, and the flight back. I just want to reiterate that this was an honest mistake.
Yep.
And I respect your policy. Obviously, this will never happen again.
So Mr. Chair, our policy is that we just don't approve these trips.
Right.
So I don't think the school committee can go through an approval
Okay.
process, but we also can't not approve it either. So this is just not under the school committee's jurisdiction at this point. So I think that we could remand it back to the superintendent to really go over the fine details. Sounds like the parents already paid. They're willing to accept the absences that the kids might have. So I don't think we should take any action on this, Mr. Chair. It's my opinion. We just send it back to the superintendent. Maybe there's some personnel, some issues with the teacher who's going to be leaving school, or, it's none of our business. But.
Okay, Mr. Kissel, you had a
Well,
question?
that's what I was going to say. So it was the same statement, which is, if we didn't approve it initially, and it was supposed to be during a vacation, I'm assuming is what the
Right.
whole plan was. I'm the same.
This is just an honest mistake, that
Yeah.
this happens
Yeah.
to be a private trip that's happening on school time, and I really appreciate your transparency and honesty coming before us to explain that. Because we are not, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, just
Yep, nope.
taking over the show.
See, now
All
you
right.
can.
It's not hurt.
I know, that's fine. I
So I make
appreciate
a
your input.
motion to
Well, I
take
think-
no action
Yeah, right.
and
So
send it back to administration.
I think we can reflect on our policy. I have the policy here, and it says the school committee will not review or approve trips that are privately organized and run without school sanction. We think this is where this falls, so I'd like the minutes to reflect that the committee has heard what's happening. We think that it doesn't fall under our purview, so the school committee has no jurisdiction in this. Mr. Kissel?
Just one piece, and I think, when this first came up,
Yeah.
because I thought we talked about this a while back, and
Yeah.
one of the comments I made back then was, by default, it becomes a school thing. There's staff going. How was it signed up? Was it signed up as Woburn School Department signing up for the trip, or did you sign it personally?
Oh, no, it's totally from me to them and EF Course.
Okay, so the
A
school,
third-party type thing.
Right.
the school department's not on the contract at all?
No.
Okay, just want to, that's huge, because if we
Right.
are and something ever happens,
You're
God
absolutely
forbid.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, that's definitely what the policy was.
Right, so I would accept a motion from the committee that we think it doesn't fall under our purview,
Right. Can't-
because the school committee will not review or approve trips that are privately organized and run without school sanctioning. So I have that motion.
Second.
And we have a second?
Yes.
Any discussion on the motion?
No.
Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
And we recommend that you meet with the superintendent to discuss any issues about absences and so forth.
So
Yep.
if I can, let's plan on meeting tomorrow, if possible. I'll look at my calendar.
I'm taking tomorrow off, so maybe the next day. It's been a week.
Okay, so you'll work it out with the...
Yeah, my
Okay.
husband and I have one car.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, and good luck. Okay, so we also have another trip with Faith is involved, and she's mentioned already, is the Model UN. I see we have the principal and the class president, if you guys want to...
So I think it's separate, right? So,
Oh,
this-
he's not coming, he's not talking about that.
Yeah, so.
Sorry, yes,
so-
he's
so
talking
the-
about graduation.
Yes, yeah, so that, I think Faith is on. Faith, if you can just provide the committee an update as it relates to the Model UN conference and what the expectation and hope is.
It's
frozen.
Just in case. I'll let Jessica come out.
Yeah,
Connection. Do you mind repeating that?
sure.
Sorry.
Ms. Callahan's jumping up in front too, but I guess I just wanted to have you, it's my understanding that you were involved in the planning of the Model UN, is that correct?
Yes, I'm the president of the
There you go, right, thank you. And so can you just give an overview of what the club does and what this trip will entail?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started Model UN back last year. So last year was the first year we did it. So Model UN stands for Model United Nations, and it's basically a club where there's different charters all throughout the country. So we created the charter in Woburn, chapter rather, And so students basically represent different nations and can participate in conferences with people from all over the state or country where they represent their nation and discuss topics that have to do with current events happening in the world. And so last year we also did the conference with Boston University, but it was held virtually because of COVID. However, the conference is in person right near Boston University in person this year. And we had signed up back in September with the intention that we'd still be able to carry through with the COVID policies. And the current policy with the Boston University chapter from Model UN that hosts the conference is that they're requiring everybody to be tested up to 72 hours before, and everybody has to be vaccinated as well. So they do have those protocols in place for the indoor gatherings. Would you like me to elaborate more on the club specifically and what it's about, or on anything else?
No, I think we did get some information. Thank you for the overview. I'll open it up now to the committee if they have questions. Either you or Ms. Callanan can answer them. So anybody with any questions?
So I did,
Yep.
just Faith, just full disclosure, I did share with the committee, I had asked Ms. Callanan for information, so prior to you being on here, they read about it a little bit, so
Yep.
they understand it.
And we understand you're going to be, it's an overnight trip, that's why we're reviewing it, and the need for the overnight stay. So does any committee members have any questions or comments? Oh, Ms. Chisholm?
Would there be anybody that's not vaccinated, since that's not something that's mandated?
It is mandated.
In Boston, but not...
It's mandated for this.
Right, that's what I mean, but so is anybody missing out because of that? That's...
So the Ms. Camano is the advisor, the volunteer advisor, and she is collecting that information from the students via Google form, because the nurse said she couldn't disclose that information. The students had to disclose it themselves. So if there are any students that are unvaccinated, yes, they would not be able to go, because that's the policy of the organization.
I feel really bad about that. I just think that that's...
Well, I think that's how they're keeping people safe,
Okay, but that's something I think that even with MASC that's they're running that, I think that that's something we can take a stand on and let them know that, you know what, we just can't discriminate against students who may... That's my thoughts.
Ms. Crowley?
Sorry, I sort of yelled out. Anyway.
It happens when you sit in that chair. That's where I used, for people that don't know, that's where I used to sit.
I think this is under the school committee's approval authority. Because we're sending a group of students to represent the interests of the Woburn Public Schools. So
And normally,
I think this is great, and I'm in favor of it.
And normally, we wouldn't have to vote on it, but because it's overnight,
Yes.
that's why it falls under our vote here. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the committee?
Motion to approve the trip as presented.
Okay.
Second.
Do I have I have a motion and a second. Do I have any discussion on the motion?
On the motion, if someone is not vaccinated, could they Zoom? Would they be able to, is that
This is
possible?
completely outside of our...
I'm just asking a question. I know you don't control everything, but I'm just asking you.
I don't
if that's
believe
something-
so, Ms.
Okay,
Chisholm, because
all right.
I don't think, Faith, are they offering any virtual options for students that maybe can't be there in person, to your knowledge? Can you hear me?
I don't believe so. No.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right. Any other questions? No. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations. Good luck, and hope you solve the world problems, and then it'll make life easier for the rest of us.
Good job, Faith.
Thank you.
Once you solve the problem, please refer them to the superintendent. so he
Let
can-
me know what you find out.
Okay.
Thanks, Faith.
Okay. And so we'll keep Ms. Callanan, and we'll invite up Omar for
Omar Muhaddin.
Yep. Discuss change in the high school graduation, not plans, but date, and can discuss how that came about.
Hello.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. Welcome to the school committee.
Thank you. So my name's Omar. I'm the senior class president. I was also class president last year. And my whole thing is about doing things different. And I approached Ms. Callanan about switching our graduation date from Sunday afternoon, which Woburn's always known, to a Friday night for a bunch of different reasons. But I just wanted to get the idea to her, and she was all for it. and we decided to send out a survey to the senior students. And we got 200 responses back out of around 300 kids in the entire class, and it was about 75% yes. And so we wanted to move forward with it, and we ended up here. And we thought, especially because of the fact that we brought it to the senior students and, you know, supporting like the democratic process, that it was only right to follow through, considering they all also wanted the graduation to be moved to Friday night. And here we are.
Okay, good. Questions? Ms. Chisholm?
Joe Crowley would be standing here on top of the table clapping. Trying to pass this
Yeah.
for
You may-
about 15 years. We tried to get us to switch.
Everything new is old, so we had discussed this before, but
Yeah, so
Yes.
I think it's great because it also gives you opportunities if people fly in from out of town Friday night and you have Saturday and Sunday and bingo.
Perfect.
Good for you guys. We always wanted to throw them back at you, so you took the ball and ran with it.
okay. All set, Ms. Chisholm?
Yep.
Okay, Colleen?
So I have no problem with this. I graduated on a Tuesday because it rained. So truly, I have no horse in this race. What is it about the changing it to a Friday night that attracted you to this idea?
I mean, what isn't it? I see a whole bunch of reasons to make it Friday. Other than the fact that Friday is just a much better day than Sunday. I mean, you got Sunday scaries, knowing that you got to go to work on Monday. But on Friday, you definitely avoid the heat. I mean, we're not always used to wearing suits and ties like you guys all the time in the sun, so wouldn't be able to. It would just be a nice kind of cool down, especially like you mentioned, fly-in dates. If someone's in for the weekend, coming in on Friday, rains maybe for the next 2 days, gets pushed to Sunday, even a Monday. Now that covers having someone fly in, and then the graduation gets pushed from Sunday to Monday, and they miss graduation. There's definitely the cool picture factor of it. You have sunset pictures, Friday night lights.
Just ready for the sun,
really
the
cool.
magic hour. And what time are we talking?
I just would like to say something on behalf of Omar and the other class officers. One was at a gymnastics meet tonight, so they're all very busy. Omar is a 3-sport athlete, I think, correct? Involved in many, many clubs, and so I appreciate that you could make it tonight, Omar. He also works, busy guy. But this really has not been a traditional high school experience for the class of 2022. It's really impacted them, the pandemic, greatly. And I think when they brought this to me, I wanted to hear their voices, which is why we did a survey, and we gave them ample opportunity and reminders to answer that survey. And I really think it's important to listen to the kids because they've missed out on a lot of things, and this is something that they're asking for as a class. I love that they have student voice and self-advocacy. They did it in a professional, mature way, and Omar and I always have open conversations about a lot of things, and I just think that they're a non-traditional class, and so moving the graduation to Friday night, which is something they really want, as a majority, it is a democratic process, as he said. Really is just, it kind of embodies what they are as a class. It's non-traditional, but their experience has been non-traditional. And so I just think it's a cool thing for them to have something different at the culmination of their time at Woburn High School.
And just what time were we thinking?
What time?
Yeah, was it 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock? I didn't know if you got that far. Just curious.
Well, sunset.
I mean, yeah, I was
Right.
thinking, so I looked it up, right? On Friday, June 3rd.
Did you just look up the sunset time?
I did look
Oh,
up the
okay.
sunset time, right? I believe it was 8:17 p.m. And so if you were to start around like 5:30 maybe,
Oh, no.
by the time it's
you don't know how long graduations are here. I'm quick.
Move it to 6.
You could start. I bet you could start at 6:30 or 7.
And that would also allow for working.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
it gives people
That's
time
it.
to
All
get
right.
home from work.
So you'll work out the details.
Although
Yeah.
Dr. Wells is speaking, so we don't know.
Yeah, that they are known to keep
Dr.
things.
Wells, I always have a very solid plan, so.
Okay, Colleen, you all set?
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay, Chris?
Yeah, just to echo what everyone's been saying, I think it's a great idea. I know in the past we've talked about it. It does give a little flexibility through the weekend instead of pushing it. I mean, I got you beat, Colleen. Ours was Wednesday.
Yeah.
Oh,
We had
there's a lot of rain.
So for that reason, I think it's a great idea. The working parents, which is what I was going to mention, just
Okay.
not too early, of course, and it sounds like pushing it a little later makes more sense. And then I meant to ask, how long was the survey out there?
I want to say it was about 2 weeks.
Oh, was, right.
Yeah,
So obviously parents were involved in the decision in a sense?
So the parents have not been surveyed. We surveyed the students.
Okay.
But like I said, I was really, we went to the students. Now we're coming to you, and obviously we'll explain that rationale to the parents. But I really think this is about the kids, and I know that it is important to parents as well. But for someone who had a child that graduate in 2020, it's about them.
Yeah. I just hoping not to get a crowd of parents here saying, why did we agree to something?
Well, I can definitely communicate that.
That could be.
All set?
Yep, all set.
Andrew?
Other members have asked the questions I wanted to ask, but I wanted to commend you on your process. This is your graduation and no one else's, and I commend you on the way that you went about gathering your information, the way you went about sort of bringing your fellow students into the process. This is what we want to model in our schools, and so thank you for doing it.
Thank you.
Firmly in support.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Mulrennan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Omar. How you
Hello,
doing?
Mr. Moran. I'm doing all right. How are you?
How's wrestling?
It's good. We got Winchester tomorrow.
Tough match. You can beat Wakefield, though.
Not one Wakefield kid.
Omar, you and I had the discussion earlier about a month or so ago, and I reiterated what anyone's been saying here tonight, that it's been up before. This is not new to this group here tonight. It's someone that sat here over the years and heard it about it.
Sure.
I think we want to commend you again because the students brought this. You could have had any principal over the years come and say, I want to have graduation. Well, this came from the student. You're the class president. You're the voice of your class. You did all the right things. If you and the principal just showed up and said, I got this idea, you've done it all, Omar. And I think that's commendable of yourself and your classmates to make it happen. And I firmly believe this is going to work out. Probably, as Ms. Callahan's been saying, nothing for this class is traditional over the years, over the many, many years of COVID that you and your classmates have gone through. So I think this is one way that we can say you're getting a little bit of reward for being great young adults in our community. So I appreciate all your effort getting this done, and I'm pretty sure you'll have the support of this committee and the entire city of Woburn. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Ms. Chisholm?
Well, I'm sure that, we have Joe Brown here, so hopefully tomorrow night, the front page of the Times will say that this is going to be changing so that we can get it out there as soon as we can so that the grandparents that are flying in from wherever, they can get their ticket spots so that they can spend a long weekend and celebrate with all of you, and that'll be awesome. And just maybe put it on the website once you can do that so that everybody knows. It's only January, so hopefully nobody's bought tickets yet. So.
And Mike's following on in the internet, so that will inform
Good
the
luck.
rest of the
Great,
city.
and I hope it takes place Friday night. Thank you.
It doesn't rain.
Okay. Any other questions?
Even Dave Dunkley will be thrilled. He's been trying to push for this rule, too.
Any other questions from the committee? Okay, so I'm ready to
Awesome.
Make a motion, we proceed with Mr. Callahan and Omar's suggestion, and let them work out the details.
Okay. Yep,
Second.
Okay, so the motion is that the graduation this year will take place on Friday, June 3rd, the time to be determined, and any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations.
Good
Good job. Moving things forward and getting it changed. Ms. Callan, you might as well stay there. We'll just get you out of here early.
Thank you, Omar.
Yeah.
Thanks, Omar.
So, next up, we're going to do the Woburn Memorial High School Improvement Plan. And then we'll go back to the COVID. I know there's parents out here who want to hear about the COVID thing.
The middle school principal.
No, we're just going to keep going.
Motion to go out of order, high school principal, her
Yep.
school improvement plan.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. You want to give an intro?
Well, so, yeah, I think it's without introduction, but the high school principal, Jessica Callahan's here for school improvement plan. And so it's annual occurrence. Last year, due to COVID, we didn't do it quite as thoroughly, but here we are for this year. And so without further ado, Ms. Callahan.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. I will start by saying that most of the goals are a reiteration or update from my goals that I had last year that I'm carrying forward because a lot of last year, as you know, was spent on COVID mitigation and staying operational as a school. I do think that we've done a good job moving forward, but there's had the student learning goal, the professional practice goal, and then 2 school improvement goals. So the student learning goal is really around continuing to reinforce our curriculum which is written through the frameworks, what is called UBD. It's essentially backwards design. So what do you want the kids to know at the end? And then you plan backwards. And our teachers have been trained in that, but it's a continuous process of teaching new teachers as they come in, reinforcing to teachers that have already been trained, and then incorporating that into our curriculum. How we are measuring that is through classroom observations and feedback. So I meet with the instructional leadership team every single week, and one of the things that we do during that time is calibrate our feedback to teachers around how they're delivering instruction. One of the very basic pieces is that they're talking about essential questions. What are the overarching questions that we want students to be able to know and do? And then teaching backwards from there as we move through each of the units. And so it seems it's pretty straightforward, but it's something that I think is really important, that we have a functioning curriculum that all teachers understand and that we're all teaching similarly. Of course, every teacher has their own personality, but what we're communicating should be consistent, and working very closely with Miss Young. I was going to call you by your first name, I'm sorry. Miss Young, to make sure that we're on the same page with the curriculum coordinators, because we have a split of curriculum coordinators and a few department heads as well, and all of them have responsibilities to lead their departments. So that is my first one. Do you want me to continue, or?
I think you can just continue, and then the committee can ask
next
questions at the end.
Is the professional practice goal. And so I worked with Dr. Baldessari to become a trainer for our therapeutic crisis intervention for schools. So I have taken a course myself. I've taken the trainer course through Cornell, and also was recertified this summer. And working with a handful of trainers in the district, my goal is to have 100% of our staff trained in this protocol or this theory of de-escalation in schools to be able to deal with students in crisis, and also sometimes adults. It is very effective. And so I think that if we're all speaking the same language, so to speak, that we can be extremely successful in de-escalating students, which ultimately leads to a reduction in time students are out of class. And then time that students have referrals, and then suspensions and things like that. So it allows students to be more engaged overall in the school emotionally, which allows them to be more academically engaged. And so this is the best practice that I have ever seen at a high school level. I firmly believe in TCIS, and I use it every single day. Not every student is not in crisis, but when people get escalated, or you yourself are feeling escalated, it's a way to check yourself and go through a quick step, a process to calm the situation down. And this is definitely a time when we need that. And so this is just something I feel strongly about. I train people myself. Dr. Crowley trains, or not Dr. Crowley, Dr. Baldessari trains people, as well as a handful of other people throughout the district. And so I've had several iterations of my teachers go through this training. I would say we're about 70% trained. My goal is for everyone to be trained by the end of the year. Okay. So I feel very strongly about race equity. It also ties into our strategic plan or blueprint for the district. We've done a lot of work with our faculty and our staff over the course of last year. We've had 2 student panels. One was the graduates and one was current students. We've had other speakers come in. We had a speaker come in and do a presentation at the end of the year to really define all of the terms that are out there in terms about race and equity, one of which is critical race theory, what that means, how teachers can confront that or understand what that is when they're teaching or asked about it. And then this year we're moving forward with our work. Dr. Crowley is also doing a lot of work at the district level with race and equity that the administrators have been involved in. And but specifically what we're doing with staff this year is looking at our disciplinary referral data and seeing if there are any trends within that data pertaining to race and equity. And then once we take that hard look at ourselves for both just basic referrals out of the classroom and or suspensions, to figure out what we do to mediate any trends that we may see. And I've done that in a previous district. It is kind of eye-opening, a little hard to swallow if you see that at the end, but I think we're at that point where we can have that conversation with our staff. And so that's what we're going to do around the mid-year next week. and have that overarching conversation with teachers about our referral data, which is essentially time kids are usually missing from class. And lastly, this is the thing that never goes away. I talked to a former principal, Mr. Norton, and he told me to use NEASC to help you meet your goals and needs as a school principal. And so it kind of reframed my thinking about the accreditation process. And we're using the recommendations from NEASC. It's a continual process. It's not every 10 years. You have submissions at the 2-year mark, the 5-year mark. It never stops. So I don't want to let that conversation die in between our visits. And so we have committees. One is really around looking at developing pathways for our students, partnering potentially with Middlesex Community College for pathways around certification programs, which we have a few already, but I'd like to make it much more robust. Or students earning up to even 30 credits or their associates prior to leaving the high school, which launches them into college, or students having opportunities with internships or passion projects as they come to the culmination of their time at Woburn Memorial High School. And that is really the mission of NEASC next time, is for us to define what is our vision as a graduate. And so every school has a mission, and we have characteristics we want our students to meet. We're looking at a hard look at those characteristics and making those the things that we want students to be able to demonstrate by the time they graduate, which is your profile or vision of a graduate. And then the other piece of that is looking at our internal schedule. And so there's a committee working on really picking apart our internal schedule based on the recommendations from feedback NEASC visit, and seeing if we can come up with a schedule that meets those needs, meets our students' needs, and also hopefully can fit into the WTA contract. It's a tough call, but I am confident that we'll get there. And that is it.
Thank you.
Is there any questions?
Okay. Ms. Chisholm.
What would, the profile of a graduate, what would that consist of? Like, do you have an idea what that would entail, or?
Well, currently, the characteristics that we look for in students are centered around social, civic, and academic. And so what I'm doing with the committee, which we honestly just started in earnest because it's been kind of a tough beginning of the year. And so we have a group of people that have volunteered to take part in this. We're looking at a lot of different examples from other school districts across the country, and then really hashing out, we're meeting weekly to see what we want to define as our vision of a graduate. And I think right now one of our issues is we have too many things on the list, and so we have to kind of be more concise. And then obviously I'll bring that before the committee because it would be potentially changing our vision, but definitely changing the characteristics that we have underneath our vision and mission. That would become the vision of the graduate rather than a list of characteristics.
Okay. Yeah, because I just thought that was interesting. It would be, what we expect, what would walk across the stage.
Yes, and I think what's really important to me, and I've always said this, is that every student has a plan, right? So I don't really care what students choose to do after they leave high school, but I want them to have a plan, whether that's a 4-year college, a 2-year college career, a pathway to success, and to be independent and happy, right? And so I think that's really important to me, and so I want students to be able to explore different opportunities as they go through high school. And the vision of a graduate or profile of a graduate really asks us to have some thresholds at each grade where we're assessing, like, is the student meeting, somehow meeting, our expectations in each grade. Not a formal test or anything like that.
Could there be a profile for different subgroups, or because you couldn't have one for?
No, it would be, there are many different pathways, yes, that students could choose from.
Okay.
And the idea would be to expose the students to those options, in freshman and sophomore year.
Yeah, to meet a certain profile.
Yeah.
Good. Any other questions?
I was just looking through your,
Probably.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was looking through the school improvement plan. It's great. I love your goals. And I saw that in your, I want to make sure I call it correct. Race and equity goal, that you plan to interface with the Embrace Club, and I was wondering what ways do you see yourself bringing in students to meet this goal?
You mean with the Our Embrace Club?
Yes, it just says that you will be, sort of interfacing with the Embrace Club.
So, I mean, I personally attend the Embrace meetings,
okay.
not all the time because they need time to talk things out, without me there, I think sometimes. But
Right.
the Embrace members were the 3 or 4 of them were the ones that came and had the panel that we had at the beginning
Yes.
of last year. And so it's really an open and honest discourse, Ms. Crowley, about, I don't want to embarrass Omar, but one of the things that we were talking about was, what certain students wear on their headgear, right? For lack of a different term. But, and so he and I have been in a conversation, and I've been talking, it's against our school handbook for students to wear hats of any kind, right? Unless it's related to religion. And so he and I have started down that conversation, that pathway, and it'll probably be a greater conversation with the Embrace Club for me to better understand the cultural needs of students and when they're being straight with me and when they're not. So we have some pretty open and honest conversations because I want to understand their needs and make them feel happy and comfortable in the school while still making sure that they understand what the expectations are when they go into the workplace or college or any professional setting.
I just noticed that, when Omar brought forward the issue with the graduation date, how, deferential you were to the student voice, and so I figured you had a vision on how you were going to meet your race and equity goal through, involving the students.
Yeah, I mean, they're very much involved and
Yeah.
have been, and I think the student voice is very, very powerful and sort of disarming in talking to adults, and I'm not trying to use them in any kind of underhanded way, but I think when we hear from students about what their needs are or how they felt in certain situations, even if it was not our intention to make them feel a certain way, it's incredibly powerful. And I could say 10,000 words and they might be able to say something in 4 words that rock somebody's world. And so I think that we talk all the time, so it's not as much of something that's very prescribed, but we have constant conversations about, how the school can be welcoming to all.
Yeah.
And I do think that the kids feel that I'm approachable, at least the older kids. Maybe the 9th and 10th graders not yet, but we're getting there.
And of course, that makes schools safer because if kids feel more connected, then of course
Yeah.
be more invested in the school system and will be safer support. Okay. My only question.
Mr. Lipset.
So, sticking with the same school improvement goal, and this is a topic that's very close to my attention and my heart as a history teacher, and thinking about how issues around race and equity are often impact our schools. You're talking about bringing teachers in, talking to teachers about how we can break down some of the barriers within school, which is fantastic. How, in the classroom, I know how to have difficult conversations, uncomfortable conversations with students. Could you give me a sense of how you can approach those kinds of conversations with staff as well around issues, especially those issues that sometimes affect their own professional practice?
Mm-hmm. I think it's a delicate conversation, Mr. Lipset, because I don't believe that any educator ever enters into a situation or relationship with a student where they're trying to do harm, right? And so it's a very hard thing to hear from someone, especially a young person, that you did that, right? That you caused them to be upset or you caused them harm. I do think it's very important for us to teach resiliency to our kids and our staff, but listening, to how they felt in a certain situation, it may be totally unintentional, but to have that conversation. So I do think that we're in a good place with our staff. I've worked in districts where the conversation around race and bias did not go well, and I think that our staff is on board. We've had difficult conversations, and they've heard hard things from students and former students. We've talked about, there's an author that talks about the danger of a single story also, and not putting people in a box, saying, oh, well, you are from this country, so you must not have electricity and things like that. That is also damaging. And so we're having a lot of open and honest discourse. We've also added some classes and proposing to add more classes where these conversations are the center. And so I just think that Woburn's in a healthy place, and we're very lucky that we're a diverse community. We're a small city, that cares very deeply about our school system and our city, but we also embrace the diversity. And I think part of that is being able to have those tough conversations, but I think our staff's ready. We've started. It's never a conversation that you're done with. I think you always have to continue with that growth mindset, but I think we're in a good place.
I just want to commend you for facing it head on and having these conversations both with your kids and for your kids. So thank you.
Set. Anybody else have any questions, comments? Okay. Well, thank you very much for.
Thank you, everyone.
I'll make a motion to approve the
Yep.
Woburn Memorial High School improvement plan.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank
you.
you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll a motion to return to regular order of business, and that's the reports and presentations of the superintendent and staff.
I'll make a motion to return to the regular order of business.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion carries. Okay, thank you, everybody. I know that some people have been waiting for this, and I appreciate you sitting through, but we wanted to get through the students first, so thank you. So, Dr. Crowley.
Sure. So I was asked to give a COVID update, so I will do that. Obviously, COVID has been a part of the school system now for 22 months, and before I get into the presentation tonight, I do think that I want to address the fact that there's no perfect answers right now, and that as a district, we're doing our best to keep staff and students safe, and I'll go through that in the presentation. As the Omicron variant flared up, certainly, we need to provide COVID updates, and presumably in the near future we will as well. So to the comment earlier, we want to be transparent with the community to the extent that we can. That being said, we're all in this together, and the staff, over the holiday break, a lot of staff pulled together to get the testing kits into the schools so that on Monday, when there was a delayed opening, staff could be tested. On that day, we did have 19 staff that showed up that tested positive, so we had that 2-hour window. There were 500 plus test kits at every school. The nurses have been unbelievable. Prior to the holiday break, we did, to some extent, anticipate the need. So we did hire multiple substitute nurses at each school. So we want to try to support the nursing staff to the extent that we can. I'm glad we did it proactively in anticipation of really what we faced. Right now, and maybe it'll come up later, but we are facing staffing challenges. We have a number of staff that are out due to COVID, and that's teachers, paraprofessionals, secretaries, administrators, and people throughout the district are going above and beyond to cover each other. And we have crossing guards out. We have, there's people out all over the place, and I just want to publicly thank everybody who has pitched in to keep our school open, because our school's open. Although I will say that I was glad it snowed last Friday. And every day is, I'm borrowing a phrase, I forget from where, but it's a human Jenga puzzle is what we're doing every morning, starting at around 6 a.m. to make sure that we can stay open. So we'll continue to do that, but I just wanted to say thank you to our staff. I also want to say thank you to our students, because I've been in schools. I was at a couple elementary schools today, and the kids are so resilient, and I go on purpose to schools because it reminds me why we do what we do. And I was at a couple kindergarten classrooms. The kids are wearing their masks. They're apart, and they're doing their best in a surreal environment. And so I just want to thank all students, pre-K through 12, for being so amazing in the midst of a pandemic. To our families who are keeping students home when they're sick, thank you. We don't want kids coming to school when they don't feel well. Thank you for reporting to our nurses what's happening at home, and for the continued support. This isn't easy, and there's no great answer. And so, on behalf of myself, but the entire administration, appreciate the teamwork that's going on. And the administration, that's everybody here that has been deployed into classrooms at all different levels. Dr. Baldessari was at the Goodyear for Ms. Young's been today, was at the Alta Vesta. Malcolm White. Our coordinators are all around. So it really has taken a team effort. And so I need to kind of contextualize what's happening to make sure that our schools stay open, because we do not have, and I conclude by saying this, but we do not have a remote option. So we have to do everything that we possibly can to stay open. That being said, I want to highlight this to the committee, but to anybody who might be watching. A lot of information can be found on the City of Woburn's website as it relates to what's happening in the city. And I don't know if people know this or not, but in the upper right-hand corner here, if you click on that, this is a screenshot, so it's not a live link. But if you click on the COVID Center, it will bring you to a COVID update as it relates to the City of Woburn. And I find it very beneficial. I speak to Mayor Galvin almost daily at this point. But this data is updated every Friday. And so I just want the committee and any community member to know that. And one of the pieces of information that you can derive, if you click on it, is the case count and the positivity rate and daily average. And so as of today, the 14-day positivity is at a record-setting 16.54%. And so it's not something that we've ever seen throughout the pandemic. That said, there are people that say that the numbers are on the decline right now. It peaked. I'm not a medical person, so I can't speak to that. But I will tell you that the city has ordered 7,500 rapid test kits. I met with the mayor this morning, and so in short order, the city will work with the city to identify what percentage of those or how many can come to the schools. As I said, DESE gave us 510 maybe rapid test kits New Year's Day. I remember very clearly.
5:35.
5:35. Thank you. So those rapid tests are hard to come by, and the cities, as I just said, 7,500 should be en route. I can also say that the city is going to offer another PCR test this Saturday from 9 to 3 for citizens, and they can pre-register. Once we get the link, we push it out to our staff, and then it's available on the city website. So I don't know if you can read this. Also on the city website is the vaccination rate data, and I'll just read it for the on the beginning at the left. This is the school age populations. So the black are colored black have received one dose, and the orange is fully vaccinated. So 5 to 11-year-old in the city, and not all these attend Woburn Public Schools. 42% have received one dose, and 34% of 5 to 11-year-olds have received both doses and are considered fully vaccinated. For the 12 to 15-year-olds, 74% have received one dose, 65% have received both doses and are fully vaccinated. 16 to 19, 84% with one dose, and 75% are considered fully vaccinated. So that large, well, and I'll go to 2029 because we do have, so 78% are with one dose and 71% fully vaccinated. In the city, you can see the percent at 74% are fully vaccinated. So all of this information, as I said, is available through that City of Woburn website, and I just screenshot it so that people could see our current status as of tonight. Our Woburn Public Schools website also contains information. I've asked Jen Judkins, our Director of Technology, to put anything related to COVID update on the front page. And so, as you can see, or if you, my communication from last Friday, our return to school, the DESE protocols, there's a flow chart that DESE produced yesterday. The COVID positive cases by district, which we report those every Wednesday, and that's student and staff. And so that's been ongoing since the beginning of the school year. And so again, people that want to see anything as it relates to the Woburn Public Schools staff positivity or student positivity, the numbers are available here. I would also direct people, if so inclined, if you go on under the department tab to our health services, it will link you to our school nurses. And they are and have been an amazing resources throughout. We are continuing to use the COVID dashboard. I showed the committee this last year. And so the way this works is that when there's a positive case, and I guess I want to be clear, when a parent calls in a positive case, it still gets entered into the dashboard. This isn't just positive cases that happen at school. And so it does take, that's that communication piece between families and the school. And so the nurses have been putting the data in. This is a screenshot from today. I can't use a live dashboard because there is identifiable information below. But what I can tell you is that as of today, this afternoon, when I did the screenshot, there were 128 presumptive positives. And we're using that term now more than positives because some of the rapid tests, we're assuming it's positive. Last year, we were only going off the PCR test. And so we're using that just as terminology. 65 close contacts, 13 who are awaiting diagnosis, and just one person considered a traveler, so someone that goes in between schools. So we don't know the outcome there. And then what it does allow is for district level administration to look at every school, every grade level, and anticipate what the staffing needs might be from day to day. So as an example here, tomorrow I know that there's going to be 31 less people on this chart than there is today. It doesn't, and then on Thursday, 72 people come off of this chart. So it can be somewhat predictive for us as well as it relates to staff coverage. The issue is over the past, I was going to say 3 weeks, but it's really only been a week. We're playing whack-a-mole, and so when we take one off, another one comes on, seemingly. So like if I were to pull up this live now, it would probably look different than it did even an hour or two ago when I put it together or put this slide together. But I did want the committee and the community to know that we are continuing this practice to help us make decisions. We also added this feature within the last 2 weeks. This is a district-wide COVID positive trend, and I think it's by week. And so you can see that when we started in August, we had 8, 13, 8, 4. So and we've been tracking this. This has been throughout the school year. And then this is December 20th, so this is when we left for vacation. And you can see that while we were out of school, it spiked. And so I understand, and I genuinely do, the concern about in-school transmission. And I can't say that 100% it doesn't happen. But what I can tell you is that while we were away is when the Omicron virus hit, and that's when the spike occurred. And so it's something that, and it's done by week. So yesterday, the 10th is when we would add the next leg to this. So we'll update this as soon as possible. But again, I say this because, candidly, we want to know if there's 20 cases. I'm making up that number. If there's 20 cases at the Joyce here, a lot of these cases happen outside of school. So if we were to say to anybody, there's 20 cases at the Joyce, what I'm saying is that the community spread is more important, seemingly, than the exact number in school, because you cannot necessarily correlate the fact, like, how many kids are positive. What I can tell you from the Board of Health and ongoing conversations, they tested 500 plus people last Saturday. Yeah, last Saturday. It's a lot of families that test positive. And so, it's clustered in families. And so that's in reality why I kind of wanted to push toward people to look at the city as a whole, because our cases are going up, absolutely. But, it's interrelated. I can read this and I'll do it. It's a challenge to your eyesight. I apologize. So just some updates. And I did send this out. Our nurses are incredibly overwhelmed right now, so we did change our reporting to pivot, if you will. People will be notified if they're a close contact, and they're going to be contacted through technology. The city of people aren't doing contact tracing anymore because it's almost assumed that everyone's a close contact. And so if at school a student is considered a close contact, the nurse will report that to the family when there is action required. You can be a close contact and fully vaccinated and not have to do anything. So we are trying to modify that to ensure that the people that need to be informed are informed. I will still default to the fact that the school nurses and the school principals are the best resource. So, and I say that because particularly, and our middle school principals are here, they could answer questions, but particularly at the elementary school, the size of the buildings and what space is available at each school dictates what kind of mitigation strategies occur. So, for example, at the Linscott, they use the library, which is a wide open space upstairs, as an extra room. I was there this morning, and they were having snack. Each kid had their own table, and they were 6 feet apart. Some of the other schools don't have that big a space. They're using the gym. At the high school, I think I shared this with the committee. I don't know if Jess left, but they pulled tables into the lobby to try to use as much physical space as available. But if people have any questions on what is happening at any school, the principals and the nurses are the ones that can best answer those questions. I alluded to this earlier. Our staffing, we're making it do. As I said, it's a challenge every morning to figure it out. We have had a number of people, knock on wood, return from being out last week. We've seen the number of staff, it fluctuates at building day to day, and I think I want to give a lot of credit to the principals for communicating their needs and figuring it out to keep us open. We are continuing for now with the test and stay program. I say that because I'm hearing anyway that the test and stay program at the state level, they're thinking about changing it. But we're continuing, and that's where people consent to come in and be tested to stay in school. I have received question on pool testing, and we've talked about it here before. The nurses have evaluated it last year and then and again this year. We didn't have the resources and bodies to do that effectively. The other thing that I can tell you is that less than 50% of school districts in the Commonwealth are doing pool testing. And of the 50% or less that are doing it, only 19% of all students that are eligible in those districts are participating. And so it just, those are state level data points. We have continued to follow the DESE and DPH guidelines and the Woburn Board of Health guidelines. And so what that means specifically is that the DESE 5 day, you can, if you feel okay, you do not have to come back on day 6, but if you feel that you are able to return, you can return after a 5-day quarantine, and you do need to mask for 5 days upon the return. That's the standard from DESE, and it's aligned with the Woburn Board of Health. I think it was December 27 when the CDC came out with new guide. I mean, it was right after the holiday, and so we spent some time on a Zoom with the mayor and the Board of Health. I think that's the date that it came out, right? I think so. So my days are, forgive me, they're blending together. But so that's been the city of Woburn's guidance, and we're continue to follow that. I alluded to the rapid tests that are coming, 7,500, and once I have more information, I will gladly share that out with the community. The PCR testing I alluded to earlier, that's at the senior center, 9 to 3. The DESE did extend the mask wearing. That came out yesterday. Commissioner Riley sent something out that's been extended until February 28. And I just want to remind everybody, I said it earlier, that we do not have an option for a remote plan. It's just not something that we can do. I understand that we're in a challenging time, and we're doing, as I say, everything that we possibly can to follow DESE guidance to keep our kids and staff safe during this time. So that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I did want to note that the superintendent and I talked about having the head nurse here to thank her, like we've done some of the other groups, but they're so busy. It just, wasn't. And so, before we go to, before we go to questions, I'd just take a motion from the committee to send a letter to the head nurse. She can share with her staff that we truly appreciate the efforts they're doing. So moved.
Second.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. And now I'll open it up to questions for the superintendent. Sconia.
I appreciate that the COVID stuff has been moved forward, updated from the website. I know it was kind of lacking. Have you put any, I'm sure you put thought into it, but what are your thoughts on a dashboard that we can show, like I know some other districts are, many parents have mentioned, and while we don't think that there is spread in school, I think that really that being able to monitor a parent's grade, their child's grade, will provide sort of some easy, reassurance for the parents. So I'm curious if that's...
So I'm not sure we could do it by grade.
Okay. But by school?
Because if there's one kid in one grade, it's identifiable. And so you can't do that. Or one staff at one school, you can't, it's not something that you can be.
Sure.
I can talk with Ms. Judkins about by school perhaps. Again, where the data gets input right now, we're going to have to create something. We haven't done it for a year and a half. And so I'm not sure the ease of, I understand the question. I do.
Yep.
But it's just not how we've been doing it.
Right.
I'm not sure how easily done it is.
Yeah, it's just because it was, the information was put out, and now that it's not being put out by the letters,
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of concern by the parents to be sort of kept abreast of the situation.
Yeah, so, I'll speak to Ms. Judkins, as I say, I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver.
Yep.
But I would tell you that if parents have any question about school, call the principal, call the nurse.
Right, and that just takes more time out of the principal and the nurse's day if all the parents versus being able to post something.
But I don't disagree, but I also,
it
takes time to create this thing, right?
Yeah.
So like the dashboard that we've been using effectively for
internal
a year and 2 years or whatever.
Yeah.
That took a long time to create. So I'll explore it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anything else? Anybody else? Mr. Lipset.
Just a few questions regarding the new CDC and DESE guidelines talking about a 5-day isolation period. Those come with a lot of stipulations. 5 days is not just sort of the basic. And so, I guess my question is to the degree that we can assure the public that we can meet some of those additional stipulations. So, for example, how to make sure that any student or staff who's returning from isolation at 5 days, we can ensure in some way that they are at minimum avoiding any kind of direct or close contact with immunocompromised people in our schools, of whom I know we have many. So separate spaces for. I hate to put it in these terms, but since the isolation period has been shortened, spaces in our schools where students who are returning from isolation could eat lunch in a more separate setting, for example. Ways in which we, the CDC guidelines talk about ensuring that students are masked at any point that they are not engaging in the activity that would cause them to be unmasked. So while they're not actively eating. Now, I don't know if that means that they, according to the CDC, they have to be wearing a mask unless they are actively taking a bite of food or during a meal. I don't know how that gets interpreted. But either way, how are we ensuring, for example, that a first or second grader is maintaining a mask when they are not actively engaged in a lunch activity, right? So, it's just sort of operational questions based on, it's easy to write the policy as CDC has done, but implementing it on a school basis is obviously where the devil is. So I'm sort of asking how well we can ensure that we're following those particular parts of those guidelines.
So I can tell you, like I was at 3 elementaries today, kids are wearing masks when they're not they're masking.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I was just going to say, I think that too, that for especially the elementary schools, like being in their masks all the time is not like new since the year, right? So I think that there's a lot, it's not like we're having to necessarily start something new. This is the practice that they've had all year. And to the point, I can speak, just to the elementary school that I was at in lunch today. The students have their masks on while they're sitting and waiting. They're eating, they're putting their masks up. I think it's been the kind of the routine that's existed for a long time. And so there really is no change for those students. And again, I think every building looks different, and I think that both the nurse and the principal have put kind of a lot of thought into making sure that they are staying. And there's always staff walking around, reminders being made to students who aren't, and things like that. I also know that they're still continuing, and we go outside no matter what what it feels like. But I think that as soon as students are done eating, we're getting kids out to eat faster. Like there's a lot of things that are being done just in the routine of how things are moving too.
To what extent are staffing issues that we've had over the past couple of weeks impacting that? So, for example, when we're talking about lunch staff or monitoring staff in lunchrooms, are we seeing an impact from staffing on that? Does that affect compliance in any of these areas?
Yeah, so Well, do you want to?
No, I was just going to say, I mean, we've done a lot of kind of making sure that we have enough staff for them. The outdoor recesses are easier, to be honest. You know, it requires less people than the indoor, and especially with the mass breaks, we get kids out as much as we can. But we have staff in the buildings who aren't typically doing recess duty, you know, who are down there to make sure that we have enough staff so that we're able to run, you know, lunch and recess. We're prioritizing the time, and staff who aren't typically there are certainly going outside of their space, as well as we have a multitude of staff who seemingly don't work in our elementary schools all the time, who are volunteering.
Such as yourself.
Volunteering, you know, 2 to 2.5 hours of their day to make sure. And we do a check-in, especially at our elementary level, on staffing, specifically around our recess time daily to make sure we have people. Yeah.
Staffing more generally, not specifically with the isolation period. So, especially at our middle schools and high schools, to what extent have we encountered situations, through obviously no fault of our own, but where our staffing levels are too low to be able to assign a substitute one-to-one in a classroom? Have we encountered those situations? What does that look like in our schools when we get there?
So the quick answer is yes, we have had that. And fortunately, Tom, the middle school principals are on deck.
Yes, they are.
So they can answer that question more specifically. You know, the good part is that we are a one-to-one district now, and so students should have assignments in their Google Classroom. So if there is not a teacher, they are not necessarily unsupervised, but they would report to a certain area and have, in theory, have work provided to them by their classroom teacher.
I guess my question has more to do, it's not unrelated to COVID, just not specifically to the isolation protocols. But so, and acknowledging that this is going to vary building by building, but do we have situations where we are adding multiple classes into one space?
No.
Where masking may not be possible to always maintain 3 feet of distance, where it may not always be possible to make sure that students.
No, we're not. No, so we would put students, as an example, into a cafeteria,
Okay.
where there's plenty of space for.
Just a couple of sort of larger general questions. So when we talk about pool testing, have you had conversations with the city about how to, because if staffing is an issue, have there been conversations with the city about any potential for the city helping out in that regard?
So the city doesn't have the capacity to assist us. There's a group called the CIC that is a state contracted group. I forget what the acronym really stands for right now. It's a group of nurses that ostensibly could come out to help with the pool testing. When pool testing began back in the fall, I can tell you that some districts started it and had to stop because it wasn't going well. And we evaluated it. The nurses and made the determination that it wasn't something that we could sustain because we don't have the number of staff to do pool testing, to do test and stay, and to take care of the kids when they have a run-of-the-mill, accident at school.
And I guess the last question is, and far be it from me to let a meeting go by without getting in a jab at Desi. The masks that districts were given from the state, which turned out to not actually be at the filtration level that they were advertised. Have districts received any communication from the state about whether or not we are able to get replacement masks that will actually filter at a higher rate that we can distribute in schools, or has it been radio silence on that regard?
I haven't gotten any communication about additional masks. I don't know, Bob, have you?
No, I haven't received any communication about additional masks.
Because, on top of the issues with the staff testing, and thank you again, by the way, for spending your New Year's Day going down to pick up said tests. I find it pretty stunning that the state managed to hand out what were effectively just paper towels to people and call them masks. So I just wanted to see if we've heard anything about any potential for replacing those, but definitely not.
Not yet.
All right.
Mr. Lipson, if I may,
yeah.
we do have KN95 masks in stock that we purchased on our own,
Okay.
so that have higher filtration
Yes.
rates. But so we've offered that to staff from the get-go. If they prefer a KN95, we can provide that to them.
Okay. Thank you.
All set?
Yep.
Ms.
I
Crowley?
don't really have a question, I guess a comment. So I'm thinking about the isolation period of 5 days, return on the 6th day. And I'm thinking, well, it would make sense if the school committee said, well, you need to have a test return. But then, I know that you could be completely asymptomatic, feeling fine, and continue to test positive for months and months and months. So then we would just have kids that would never return to school, so I'm really concerned about that. On the other hand, 10 days out of school is just so long. So I'm having this debate in my mind about what best to do for student achievement. And I think at this point, I'm just going to arrive at 5 days seems reasonable, but I'm asking the public, if your child is feeling ill, do not send them to school. And, I just would help out, keep the schools open. But I'm very worried, I want to monitor, if there's school spread, I think the school committee should revisit this and consider extending the isolation period. And I think that's what Dr. Crowley arrived at as well. Just don't want to burden the public with testing when testing is going to create false positives, right? So, and especially with staff. So that's kind of where I am.
Yeah, doesn't mean you're contagious.
Thank you.
Right.
So it doesn't
yes,
help.
thank you, Ms. Cormier. You can be positive and not contagious.
Right.
I really appreciate you highlighting that. So that's kind of where I am in my thinking, and I just wanted to.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Chisholm?
Thank you.
We spent so much time on this, and I appreciate it, and it's paramount in everybody's mind, and it's very important that we try to keep everybody safe. But I just think we need to make sure that we thank everybody for what they do each and every day. I mean, the custodians that have busted their humps to make sure that the schools are cleaned, and they're out there and doing everything that they possibly can, and the teachers and the secretaries fielding many, many calls from parents just nervous and upset about things. And the admin team and the nurses, like we say, have just gone above and beyond. But in the reporting by Jen, I know that she wanted to be able to get into the classroom and actually do education in technology and not just putting up screens and changing data for COVID every single day. So I think we have to be a little bit cognizant of what we're here for too. We have to somehow, in between all this, educate our kids. So, I'll be welcoming and I'll be so excited when we sit here and debate curriculum more than we debate COVID. So I look forward to that day. Hopefully it comes very, very soon.
You and me both.
Anybody else?
Let's go.
Cormier?
Just regarding the 5 and 10 day thing, can you speak to, just because I don't know, because I'm not a parent, the kind of absentee policy? So, after this 5 days, the parents, can choose to send their kid back on the 6th day, but if they hold them out till 10, 11, 12, are those excused absences?
Yes.
How do they get excused? Is it just a call to the doctor, or?
Just a call to the school to explain that they're extending the absence.
Okay, so it's not like a hurdle?
No.
Okay.
No.
What's that?
That did actually remind me of one additional question. So, even if a student hasn't tested positive, we are asking families to not send their students to school if they're feeling ill. That's something that is, it's not exactly a change from previous years, but it is certainly of a heightened issue. What's the current status of our attendance policy in terms of unexcused absences and their effect on curriculum and grades? And is that worth reconsidering, given that we are actively asking our families to keep their kids home if they are feeling even the slightest sick? Because that's going to obviously increase our absences.
In terms of when students are absent in terms of missing work or catching up, is that?
Well, I know that we've had policies at the high school, for example, where a certain number of days absent has a negative effect. I'm wondering, is it worth considering waiving that at least for the time being?
Yes.
And I understand that there are going to be some major pros and cons to that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if we're asking families to keep their children home, and then at the same time applying a penalty for when they do so, that can, to a degree, setting mixed messages.
Sure. I can speak specifically to the high school in terms of they have the upcoming midterms and that they've discussed at the department, I guess at each department level in terms of kind of modifying tests, not including any information that's been kind of provided post coming back from the break, as well as providing, as Principal Callahan said tonight, she's pushing back dates, pushing up retake dates. Teachers are provided, I know that they were asked if they wanted to continue with the midterms, and teachers, have had the opportunity to choose to do it, to modify, change it, and certainly kind of shift and adjust the way that they're measuring achievement.
I think he was referring to, I think,
Yeah.
the high school policy used to be if you missed 5 days
Got it.
unexcused,
I see, yes.
you
Right.
couldn't pass the course.
Yes.
I remember when it first when COVID first hit, we
Got it.
that was
Oh,
one
yeah.
of the first things.
Yeah,
that-
Yeah, we've continued the
Yeah.
suspension.
Oh,
of
yeah, that,
Yeah.
right.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind.
And I would say across the board, there's been flexibility, in teachers taking the month of January and, greatly reconsidering mapping of sorts.
Yeah, no, I have no doubt that teachers are doing what they need to do to make sure that their
Yes.
kids are well treated. I just wanted to make sure that our official policy matches.
Got it. Yeah, no, that does.
Yep. Any other questions? Mr. Mulrennan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just more of a comment. Again, COVID. I think, to the parents that came forward tonight and spoke, thank you very much. Hopefully they appreciate Dr. Crowley's presentation. I know Dr. Wells has some emails she's going to present later on public comment regarding the COVID situation for the schools. But as I sit here tonight after 2 years, I look across the room, we got Dr. B over here, Ms. Young, Bob, 2 middle school principals, and of course, the superintendent himself. We're going to send a letter to nurses. I think, these individuals in this room tonight, Bob, you should be working on a budget. We're going to need money to operate the schools, but here you are telling us how many air cleaners and how often we're changing the filters.
Budget's coming, don't worry.
Okay. Ms. Young, I would much rather her telling us tonight that she had 330 kids learn their ABCs last over 2 years. She just told us how many test kits we got over vacation. Mike? Okay, Mike. How's that COVID money going? You're going to spend COVID money everywhere. We're going to hear from 2 middle school principals later tonight. It's not, and to Mr. Chisholm's point, and we're still educating the kids. And the kids are wearing their masks. We're in person, we're in school. So I can't say enough about all the people you mentioned in your presentation tonight, Dr. Crowley, crossing guards, Captain Parrott, everybody. In the community, I think you put it up to the first slide, working together. The parents tonight that spoke, the emails that were received, Dr. Wells, obviously they're getting to our attention. Obviously, everybody's doing the best we can, not just the school board, the city itself. So hopefully, whatever it takes, we can continue down the path we're going. And some of these charts and numbers will be back to where they should be, and we're back to letting these people talk about the budget, talk about the curriculum, and talk about what Mike's been doing with our families in the community. So that's my soapbox for this evening, Dr. Wells. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to say something similar in the sense that we appreciate the feedback we're getting from the parents. It helped with the air filters. We took that into. We're taking everything under advisement. But the superintendent has to make decisions, and he's doing the best he can with input from the Board of Health and other leaders and so forth. So if we're not doing exactly what you want, the superintendent is making the best decision that he thinks we can maintain in the school system. So continue with your thoughts about how we can do things. We'll take them under advisement, and we'll do what we can to keep everybody in school and everybody safe. So again, thank you for all the feedback, and we appreciate that. Okay, now we can go on to. Yep, we're going to do the middle schools. They've been waiting for a little bit. Looks like Mr. Nelson, you win. You can go first, and then get out of here. Yeah, I just took a bite.
I agree.
All right. Mr. Nelson needs no introduction.
I'm sorry, so
Nice to be here.
Mr. Carl Nelson, Kennedy Middle School.
on the front?
No, a few more years.
All right. You want to start with your goals?
Yeah.
All right.
So the first goal, looking at improving our 6th grade ELA math levels. So we actually, for the first time, we kind of following the elementary schools, we have a win block where the kids, every single day, have additional classes support. So the way it works is we do some diagnostic testing, and they split the kids up into different levels. The first 6 weeks we did math, and then after that, the last 6 weeks we just finished up for our ELA. And so then you can kind of see at the end of the 6 weeks, we do another set of diagnostic testing. And the teachers are really impressed, the improvements and so on that we've seen. So it's new to us, but it's working. And so our goal is we'll continue with it, and we'll see what happens. But the kids are familiar with it because they're done at the elementary school. Goal 2, so social emotional obviously is a huge, huge issue. And so we're trying to do anything we can to help the students out. Our guidance counselors are teaching a bi-weekly SEL class to 6th graders. We have the Signs of Suicide program for grade 7. We're lining up counseling with Homes for Little Wanderers. And we just work with the families. We actually have a therapy dog that comes in weekly. Buddha comes in, which is fantastic. It actually, I had the therapy dog come down to my office. I mean, the thing is fantastic. So, but anything we can do to help these students out. We get students that are just really, really struggling. And you have students, we all know, we have kids that haven't even been in school last year. So we have 8th graders coming into us, haven't been in school for a while. They just don't know the routine, 6th graders and so on. It's so new to them. So anything we can do to help them out, that's what we're doing. Goal 3 ties in a little bit what Jess was talking about with the equity and so on. It all ties in with updating the Woburn Public Schools blueprint. So in conjunction with Matt and Courtney and Mike and several meetings that we've had, and we'll continue throughout the year, and just looking at, it's been a few years since the Woburn Public Schools blueprint was done. So we're looking at updating that. That's going to be an ongoing process this year. Goal 4, so obviously we have our backpack program at Kennedy Middle School. And so we're looking to increase the number of families, which we have increased the number of families. We're now up to 9 families that we help out over the weekends. And that just consists of packing up boxes and delivering boxes to the families for those that can't pick it up, or they come and grab it on Friday mornings. And thanks to some huge donations that we've received, and also working with the Arlington Food Bank and some parent volunteers helping us out, our food pantry is stocked. It's the best it's been. So those 9 families is about 20 kids that we help out every single weekend. So it's phenomenal, and we can't do it. The teachers are incredible with putting it together. You go down there, and you just it's a big room that we have, and just boxes everywhere, all with the names on it. We know the number of kids in the family, and so on. It's a whole process, and the teacher's getting it going, and somebody wheels it out and brings it down to the office, ready to go. So it's just been phenomenal. It's really, and we have more and more families reaching out to us for assistance. So anything we can do, we will help them out. And then the last one, we're looking to increase the number of clubs for students, just some options. And so we actually looked at adding a spectrum club, which we have added this year, a film club, which just started last week. And we actually have a math team this year as well. They've already had one competition. The next competition is tomorrow. There's about 12 kids on our math team. And we couldn't do it without a parent volunteer. One of the parents reached out to me about starting it. And so I said, yeah, we met, threw it out there to the kids to see if there was interest, which there was, and it's been phenomenal. So our first meet, I guess they call it a math meet, I don't know. But we came in 3rd place, and one of our kids was the top scorer of everybody, which was fantastic. So those are my goals.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Mr. Kissel.
Just good job. Appreciate all the work putting into that, and then running the school through a tough couple of years. I'm sure you probably either knew or met him. Sean Cassidy took over for Dean Solomon at the Social Concern.
I have not. No.
Yeah, so Sean Cassidy, I'm going to be part of the chamber as well. He's on our board, so we're kind of getting him to get around to the schools.
Perfect.
And we can introduce himself and get a little more energy going, there at the council.
Yeah, fantastic. We've made some great connections, and people helping us and us helping people. So whatever we can do, that's great.
Yeah, that'd be good. All right, I'll have him reach out.
Awesome.
Good job. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Crowley?
I just wanted to say congratulations for, getting a parent volunteer to do the math.
I know.
stuff.
Yeah,
That's
it's great.
amazing.
Yeah.
That
Yep.
is so great, and I just,
Yep.
Please offer my
I will.
our sincere.
Mr. Curtis, his son Jackson's in the 7th
Okay.
grade, so he meets with them every single Thursday. It's a
That
weekly
is
thing.
Awesome.
Yep.
It just means a lot about how you're running the schools and how people want to help and, the kind of people that you're attracting to come and help the
Yeah,
kids.
no,
It's amazing.
it's great, and the kids get so excited about it. And being a former math teacher, I love it, so I just think it's so cool.
That's great. I think you have a great student improvement plan, and I look forward to living it. Great. Thank you.
Anybody else? Ms. Chisholm?
What are you looking for the stipend for the spectrum advisor?
So we're actually using, and Bob and I have already talked about this, where we have, we don't have in our budget is a student council advisor. We don't have a student council right now, so we're going to use that stipend.
Okay. Can you spread it between the math team and the film team too a little bit?
So the film club actually takes place during school.
Oh, okay.
And the math team is a parent volunteer, so.
Perfect.
So we're good.
I just feel so sad that both yours and the Joyce's with the suicide stuff for the kids at this age. It just breaks my heart.
Yeah, but it's necessary.
Yeah, I know.
Also next thing you know, the kids coming down to guidance and reaching out and so on. So it's sad, but we got to be there.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? So I just had one, I didn't know whether you considered having some of the high school math team students come down and just talk about what the high school math team.
Yeah, so actually we never really thought about that, Dr. Wells. But it's not a bad idea. Yeah, sort of what they have at the high school and what the options are going
Right,
on.
and they can give them some examples of the questions they have and things like that.
Yeah.
Mr. Kissel?
One last thing. Did you, for the film, is it a film club you said?
Yeah, so what they do, when I say film club, so they actually do like the morning announcements, and they set up, we have a green room that we set up in the library, and so they do the weekly announcements, what's going on in the school, what's going on in the city, things like that, and then we kind of broadcast out to the whole school.
Did you reach out at all to the media center at the high school?
We did.
Oh, good.
Yep.
Yeah, 'cause then it's a great resource up
Yeah,
there.
yeah. So Dave Gaffney, who's actually split between us and Joyce, is running it for us.
Oh, good.
And, thank you, Mr. Nelson. We'll have a motion to approve. Second. All those in favor?
Aye. Fantastic. Thanks. Have a great night.
And thank you for,
Thank you for waiting.
yep.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. Mr. Quayle.
Is he still awake back there?
Yeah.
He's got
the shoulders drive.
Thanks for having me tonight. All right, so our first student learning goal is to incorporate the WIN program into the 6th grade this year. Similar to Kennedy's, we have the students taking the IXL diagnostic, and then the teachers meet, and I meet with them as well, and the curriculum coordinators meet, and we break the kids up into different groups, and they work on skills that they need to. And the goal is mainly for the math. We want to measure their growth to go up 110 points from the beginning of the year. 100 points is the expected growth for the year. So obviously we'd like them to go 200 points, but that's not really realistic. So talking to Ms. Young, we talked and figured out 110 was a reasonable goal. Even though it is Math Center, they still do get English language arts in that as well, so they get a little bit of everything. Now the second one is for ELA MCAS growth. This is mainly for 7th and 8th graders. We took some of the resources we had with our reading teachers, and we had some availability to have them teach a few additional classes. We have SSRs at the end of the day. The 7th and 8th has them all at the same time, so I pulled 20 kids out of the 7th and 20 out of the 8th. Instead of them being in SSRs, these lower scores on MCAS scores, they go in for extra reading classes during the week. The lowest kids get 2 extra reading classes a week, and the next highest level, they get 1 extra reading class a week. So we're going to try and improve those 40 students' MCAS scores. We want them to get a growth percentile of 55 or better. The next one is for science and technology. We wanted to improve our STEM curriculum to show improvement in our 2022 science and technology MCAS scores, which will be evidenced by a 15% increase in the number of students scoring and meeting and exceeding expectations. Last year we scored at 38%, so 15% of that is roughly 5, so that's where we got 43 from. And so working with the curriculum, we're using the Project Lead the Way grant that Kim Gustenhoven got, and we really reworked our woodshop class, and we're doing more technology. We are still doing some of the woodworking that we were doing, but the 8th graders will be doing some robotics and engineering. In the 6th and 7th grade, they've readjusted their curriculum as well. And also using the science teachers, they're using the STEM Scope science program a lot more. It's kind of a flexible program, and they got to pick and choose some stuff to use, but they're using that a lot more, and it's pretty good. It really incorporates a lot of thinking into the process of the scientific method and so forth. So the next one was our social emotional learning goal. And we want to seek out and assist students having emotional issues in a timely manner, and we want to eliminate student hospitalizations due to emotional distress. Last year I think we had 12 kids hospitalized over the course of the year. And a lot of it's COVID related, and some of it just happens with middle school age kids. But the guidance counselors, they meet with teachers bi-weekly. They discuss the student needs, who they think is a possible person that they need to reach out to. We use a student referral form where students can seek out counselor support. They don't have to ask a teacher, can I go seek guidance? They just go into their computer and they punch in a little Google form, and then I'd ask them, is this something you need to be seen immediately, or can it wait 24 hours? And if anything that needs to be immediately, it's flagged right to us, and then we get the guidance counselor right to him, so the kid doesn't have to really identify himself going down. The Signs of Suicide program, unfortunately, it's something we have to do. We used to do it in 8th grade, and we're finding more and more kids need it at a younger age, so we moved it up to 7th grade last year. And once they go through the program, they also have forms to fill out too, and it asks if you know of somebody that's in danger, and we get 4 or 5 referrals, and the guidance counselors will screen them out right after those classes, so it's pretty good when we get the parents involved. And we also line up the outside counseling with the Home for Little Wanderers. It's an outside agency, but we set up kind of coordinated so they can come into the school. A lot of our kids, they can't get the therapy counseling. A lot of them can't even get them to get there. So we used to have, I think, 7 kids. I think we're up to 11 kids now. So, and also the guidance counselors and adjustment counselors, they work with families on the social emotional learning issues. The good news is, so far this year, we've only had 1 student hospitalized, and we're almost halfway through, so that's a good sign. And the last one is working with the staff to understanding of unconscious biases in education, and work together to reduce, eliminate these biases at the Joyce. The administration team, we read a book about the unconscious biases in education, and it is kind of eye-opening. A lot of things you'll read, and you go, oh yeah, I see that, and you don't really see it until you read about it. And so that's kind of like the staff professional learning goal.
Thank
so that's
you.
that plan.
Thank you. Any questions? Cormier.
For the Home for Little Wanderers, are they coming into the school during the school day?
They come into the school during the school day.
Excellent, thank you.
Last year we did it all on Zoom or Google Meet. This year they're coming into the school.
Perfect, thank you.
You're all set? Mr. Lipset.
So the Google
Didn't
form.
you use all your questions with the Kennedy?
I don't know.
It was all over.
Fire away.
So the Google form that you talked about
Yeah.
for referrals, I remember you mentioning that at a subcommittee meeting a couple months back, and I was really impressed by how it worked and how you described how it worked. How many would you estimate, how many referrals per, let's say, month do you tend to get through that?
I'm guessing we probably get at least 15 that use that form. We do have others that just come down out of the blue and say I need to talk to someone.
It just struck me as a really easy and quick response way to get those kinds of referrals to the people who can really act on them quickly, and I would love to see something like this talked about, or at least looked at district-wide. It really does seem like the kind of tool that can.
It's good because some kids are embarrassed to say I need to go down to guidance. So people would think they're working on an assignment, all of a sudden it goes down. And if they need to be seen right away, we'd have Val come, well, can you come to the office to check this out and you need to pick something up? Or they call the teacher and say, can you have so-and-so just deliver something to the office? And then they grab them there so they don't even know they're going to guidance.
Yeah, I mean, especially right now when we know that, student stress levels are through the roof, and we're seeing a lot of negative results from that. It would, I think that's a great model that we could sort of pull up. So thank you for that.
All set?
Yep.
Mr. Chisholm.
Well, first I wanted to thank you for helping me with my Christmas shopping.
Oh, no
PTO,
problem.
which was awesome.
Top seller.
I just, is there a way on the website that the parents, if they feel something with their children, they can reach out? Like,
I would have to check and see if that's on there. I know we have the ability to do it, and we advertise to the parents to reach out to guidance whenever they need to.
Right. But I just didn't know if there was a way, even like if a grandparent or
we could
saw
probably
something
link that form on the website.
Yeah, just a heads up to, if they see something with the kid, sometimes they can see it, but in school it's a little different scenario. So give them a heads up that something might be cooking at home that kids might carry to school.
Look at that.
Thank you. Mr. Mulrennan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tom, I know Mr. Nelson's left already tonight, but you have your school council members listed here. If you just want to give them a little shout out for their efforts along with yourself.
Okay. I will.
Who are they behind you there?
We can read them.
Okay.
Yeah. Who knows how to read?
Yeah, so we have Anna Mahan, her daughter's in 8th grade, so she's an 8th grade parent rep. We have Colleen Sheehy, who's a grade 7 parent rep. And we have Mark Camaro, the grade 6 parent rep. And then Joe Wells is a community member rep. And then we have 3 teachers, Mr. Byington, Mr. Tuzel, and Ms. McNamara, who also help out with me and Ken. So.
And I know that the modifications over here, the library is now a classroom, really not a lot to do with your school improvement plan, but it improved the upstairs here. How's that working out for you?
That's working out pretty good. The kids love it, the teachers love it. It's good to get those kids in classrooms with windows. We still have some classes without windows, but those kids are in there one period a day. The kids that are in those classrooms, we're in windowless classrooms probably half the day.
And you're still getting library services, but it's just...
Yeah, so they use the library downstairs, so could get a little bit more use, but it's tough with this time going on.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Motion to approve the Joyce School Improvement Plan as presented?
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Gwelly. Have a good night. All right.
Thank you.
Closing down the night.
Yep. So we have subcommittee reports. The only subcommittee we can report on was the one just before the end of the year, was the resource subcommittee that I chaired at the time. And you've all received in front of you the feasibility plan here. And so the feasibility study is to assist the district in creating a 10-year maintenance and improvement plan for all these buildings in order to preserve and maintain the integrity and safety of the buildings for the students and staff members. So the subcommittee, consisting of Mr. Lipset, Mr. Kissel, and myself, along with the chair, Ms. Crowley, met on December 21st at 3:30. We discussed this plan, which essentially is the basis for the bid that's going to go out. Once the bid goes out, somebody will be hopefully chosen. We'll approve the contract, and then we'll get the report. And so the committee will get follow-ups on that. During that meeting, we also got to tour the library, and the former library in the new building, got to see all the work, and got to see Miss Young's Bass.
My suite.
Yeah, with all the people there. And then also, we learned about some donations from the Girl Scouts for boards for students who are visually impaired. And so that was nice to see. And so I think they're up to 3 or 4 right now. And we also discussed the water issue, and essentially the school department is waiting for the city to act on the PSA. chemical that's been detected in the system, but we want to assure people that, this is something that the state has changed the level that the federal government mandates you have to meet, and that's why everybody who lives in the community probably got a letter saying they were drinking that water. And so we're trying to work with the city to mitigate that, but I think it's going to be a while before, we haven't heard anything from the city yet. Okay, so that, I just wanted to give everybody that update. I don't think any votes are needed on that, so. So we have the new subcommittees. We did eliminate the policy subcommittee, much to the chagrin of Dr. Baldessari. But what I suggest is that if there are policies that need to be reviewed, they can go to the appropriate subcommittee, and if this, can't find the right subcommittee, just bring it to the full committee and we can discuss it.
Dr. Wells, I just want to let you know that SSA will be discussing the homeschool policy.
Oh, good.
That was an important one.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Yep. So, and then the other committee that, to replace the policy subcommittee was a committee that we used to have, but was suggested again by Mr. Lipset to bring back, was the communications subcommittee. It's really to do outreach to people that maybe we don't normally hear from, but also to help with the follow-up from people that come to the committee. They ask questions, and sometimes, we don't have the response right away, so he can reach out to them. Okay. Anything else about the subcommittees? Okay, look forward to their reports coming up. Correspondence. Before anybody else adds today, I want to just do a few here. The first one I wanted to mention is Dr. Baldessari informed myself and the superintendent that Adriana Mendez Sheldon was selected for a 2-year term at the state's Parent and Community Advisory Council. This is really a great honor for her, and it's great for the school system, so we want to congratulate Andrea if she's watching. Okay. The other thing I wanted to announce is that Mr. Kincannon, the council president, announced that Mr. Viola will be our representative, and unfortunately he couldn't make it tonight, but he looks forward to working with us going forward. And then we had several emails that you all should have received from Ms. Mazur, Ms. Jenin, Ms. Johnson, Ms. Skinner, and Mr. Elaine, and all of those will be entered into the records. I'll print them out and send them to you. But everybody had a chance to read them. I think a lot of the questions they had to do with COVID, and hopefully the superintendent answered most of them, or at least said he took them under, I know he took them all under advisement, and so we appreciate the letters. Okay, any other correspondence from members? Okay, future agenda items. If anybody has any, you can send them to myself or the superintendent. Okay, and then we're going to have an executive session tonight. We're going to have 2 discussions. One is to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, and one to have one on litigation. And so we'll do the litigation one first, and then Ms. Chisholm can leave on the bargaining one. So if we have a motion.
Motion to go into executive session.
For those reasons.
Second.
Indicated by the chairperson.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Ms. Chisholm?
Yes.
Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
Ms. Crowley?
Yes.
Mr. Lipset?
Yes.
Mr. Kissel?
Yes.
Mr. Morena?
Yes.
Dr. Wells?
Yes. Thank you, everybody, for